Hello everyone, this is Alex, and I'm going to be taking you on a quick little tour of my Laserdisc collection. It's modest, but I think it's nicely curated. I started collecting Laserdiscs, over a decade ago. Basically, what happened was I found a Laserdisc player at a thrift store. It was a Pioneer, and along with it was a box set, actually, which I'll get to at the end. But I was always enthralled by Laserdiscs, and I've seen many people on YouTube who are far more prolific collectors of Laserdiscs than I am. But I'm a bit more selective just because I'm not going to go buying every single title that catches my eye, or I'm interested in usually like favorites and stuff that I can't really get anywhere else, or if it's cheap enough and I want to see it. So this is, and most of these actually were bought at a record store that has consistently really good titles in amazing quality. As you can see, this 20,000 Leagues archive edition is, pristine, and and the prices that I've gotten these for are within like the $3 to $5 range. So yeah, but here's a wonderful gatefold. You just are proud to own these things. And most of these extras are on the DVD, except for there's a TV special on the filming of the underwater sequences that is not on the DVD because it's an hour long and it would have taken up a lot. But I can watch it here now, and yes, one other thing, is that the color and the sound, as far as I know, might be different from the DVD. Definitely different than the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray is bare bones and it has been tampered with visually. You can tell there's a shot specifically of the Nautilus in front of the, like, waiting to attack a ship, and it's at sunset. And as long as I'd grown up watching the film on VHS and DVD, that shot is red, like it's predominantly orange or red. And then suddenly on the Blu-ray, it's predominantly blue, with the only really red-ish thing being the sun. So that it's a pain, but that's why owning these older releases is so important. And speaking of important releases, this is something I picked up at the same record store for $5, and it's the director's cut of The Alamo, which I have not seen yet, but I was made aware of this film and its history, and this release's history, by Damn Full Idealistic Crusader, or the Film Analyst, I think he also goes by. But and he's one of the big Laserdisc collectors on YouTube that I know of, other than Culture Dog, but who also kind of got me into looking into Laserdiscs. But I'm pretty excited to watch this movie because I do love old roadshow films. I like John Wayne, and yeah, just having something like this where this is the only way you can see this cut of the film. That's why. That's kind of one of the selling points about Laserdisc. It has things that you can't get elsewhere. Here's one of my favorite movies, The Time Machine. This is the 1992 MGM-UA letterboxed edition. And it just, the artwork is always grand on these Laserdiscs. That's kind of the word for it. But a lot of attention to detail, especially these little bullet points are actually cut in the shape of the time machine itself. And they have that copper ink on them. And it also makes note of mentioning that the stereophonic soundtrack remixed and re-edited by Scott Perry. Now, I don't know too much about who that is or some of the other audio tracks for different releases of this film, but I have been familiar with this film mainly from DVD over the years, and when I watched this Laserdisc, I noticed several audio differences, including a score cue that had mostly been dialed out beforehand, or afterwards, I should say, in the scene where George finds out that his friend Philby had been killed in the war. There's sort of a emotional sting to that, but that had been dialed out, that first part of that cue, in most other versions I've seen, but in this version, that initial part of the cue was present, as are some other sound effects and some other things too that make it, worthwhile to actually check out. Here's the Criterion CLV edition of Night at the Opera. And another one of my favorite movies, and it's just fun to have. Here is The Taking of Pelham 123. And basically, I'd wanted to see this movie for years, and every time I would go to a used record, like a record store or something, and just try to find a copy of it, it would always be the remake, and I just figured, hey, this is nice, I'll watch it, and heck, it's a darn good movie. Really enjoyed it, and the soundtrack by David Shire is great too. But and I'm sure that there's some discrepancies between that edition and some later versions that were put out, audio-wise and maybe picture-wise. This is something that I picked up, which, I'm a huge George Pal fan, and here we have two George Pal productions, Atlantis, The Lost Continent, and The Power. And The Power is letterboxed, so I'm really looking forward to watching those. And I've heard very mixed to kind of like Atlantis is kind of mid, but The Power is I hear a lot of people like it, and I have the scores for both of these films, and they're in fact actually the Film Score Monthly CD that has Atlantis' score also contains the score for The Power, and it was like, at the time, all they had was the masters for a private LP pressing. They thought the complete score was lost, but it turns out it wasn't, because they just went digging a little more, and the complete score for The Power ended up getting released on this Miklos Rozsa box set that they put out. That you're not gonna get that for cheap. You're about not gonna get that at all. So I'll take what I can get. And here is the Pioneer special edition of Wuthering Heights, the film from 1939. And so I saw this, and I was kind of familiar with suites of Alfred Newman's score, because it is a really good score, and I noticed that it does have his score isolated, not isolated with music and effects, just the score isolated. And I wondered how that was, because there's never been an actual release of the film score, the original recording, but it notes that despite the efforts of two rapacious collectors, we managed to find the optical tracks for all of the film's music cues as composed and conducted by Alfred Newman. They are isolated on the second analog audio track. Where they may be enjoyed without interference from dialogue or effects, so that it is indeed the isolated score. There hasn't been an official, at least somebody better correct me, but as far as I know, there was a bootleg that was made from this Laserdisc, and I'm probably going to try and find a way to isolate, get the audio extracted from this. But I can't wait to watch the movie too, because I know it's very highly regarded. And after that, we have White Heat with James Cagney. I took a while to come around to James Cagney films. Kind of I'm really not super into like the whole crime noir films, unless there's something more kind of attracting me to it. And James Cagney really is a main attraction. I've basically enjoyed whatever he's been in, except for, I don't know, maybe that one film he was in with Edward G. Robinson. I feel like I nodded off while I was watching that, but no, his films are fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing The Roaring Twenties, which is getting a Criterion release soon, but yeah, that one's definitely on the watch list soon. And then one of my all-time favorite movies, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, in the Criterion Collection Special Edition. This one has a lot of extras. And a lot of them were ported over to the first Blu-ray, and then, but not all of them, but then all the rest, I think, were brought over to the Criterion 4K and Blu-ray release, which I got recently and was watching, and is wonderful. But yeah, honestly, I'll watch this movie in any format. It's nice to have this in all these fun little inclusions of various production sort of like materials, like the posters and things hung on the walls, or some of the papers from the belonging to the Jonathan Pryce character. And here's another classic that I've wanted to see, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. This is a 2-disc edition because of the runtime. But I really, I really like kind of am amazed now, especially in this age, at the beauty of the art design on some of these releases. Is this background section right here, you can see the B-24s are all painted on like a canvasy texture, which kind of adds a nice contrast to the more like the airbrushed. Basically, these covers kind of all, a lot of them in the MGM UA line were airbrushed stills. But having some of that stuff in there is really nice. And then here you have this really cool sort of scratchy kind of representation of the bombing run. And then, a lot of these copies that I'm getting are in really, really good shape. Some of them, when you open up, if they're a gatefold, when you open them up, they give this kind of satisfying little crackle, like, it's either the first time or one of the few times it's actually been opened. And let's see, what's next? So this one was kind of a blind, not so blind, but a kind of a gamble. But it was Woody Allen's Manhattan, which I enjoyed for the most part. It's kind of interesting. Not usually the kind of movie that I check out, but I have seen some of other of Woody Allen's movies, and they're enjoyable for some of the wit and some of the humor, but I'm not I guess I could say a fan. It does have all of the music isolated as well. But that was the one like selling point, because I knew there was a lot of Gershwin, there was a lot of beautiful New York photography, and that was kind of the reason I bought this. And and it was $3, so yeah. And the opening sequence and everything really sells you on it. So this is the one of the CLV editions of 2001: A Space Odyssey from Criterion. No extras, but it's very, very cool. Very cool to see. And then we got, so one day I was at church, and a friend of mine runs up to me, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I've got I think it was a late birthday present or something," but he hands me this. So this is the Connery Collection Volume 2, with Thunderball, Diamonds Are Forever, and You Only Live Twice. And if you've watched any of Damn Fool Idealistic Crusaders videos, you'll know he's a huge Bond fan, and also kind of goes a little nuts when talking about the audio and picture manipulation that occurred after the Lowry Digital quote-unquote restorations, which I can totally sympathize with, because and for a while I was growing up, I didn't know that these things were problems. And a lot of times I ignored the whole audio track, aspect. I didn't really care about it, but now that when I learned more about what I was missing, it is a problem. And these have, a lot of the original, I think some of the less, tampered with, and they sure sound a darn sight better than, I think a lot of the stuff on the Blu-rays. And that's the thing too. I only have component cables to hook up the Laserdisc to the TV, but it sounds amazing. Especially what was it? I was just watching on the Time Machine release. This sounds like wonderful. Especially the score. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm kind of about to come back around to watching all the Bond films through again, and I might try and see which ones I can get on Laserdisc to see that way, because I'm very familiar with them on the Lowry kind of restored versions, and I think it'll be a nice kind of jolt to see them in less adulterated form. Okay, and the final one in the collection that I'll show is the first Laserdisc I got at a thrift store, so it's a little dinged up, but it is the Pioneer box set for Amadeus. And so, yeah, as you can see, it's got this ribbon to open it up. And I got this for, I think, $11. It was in the record, where the LPs are, of course. And it's number 3,148 of 10,000, limited edition. So, disc 1. And yeah, I was just overwhelmed and really appreciative of the packaging when I first encountered this, because I'm like, yeah, this is big. I'm so used to DVDs, VHS, just, these things getting smaller, or in many cases now non-existent. And then there are some goodies that were in here. Not all of them, though. It does not have the soundtrack CD, but that's okay, because the one that was in here was a 2-disc edition, I think. I actually have a 3-disc soundtrack for Amadeus. And then this is a nice booklet just about Mozart. Goes into some background on the film, the actors. It's like you hardly even believe that like these sorts of things were made for movies back then. But my impression of the 90s, having grown up in it, is that it was a time where movies, especially classic movies, were being celebrated and really pushed on the, oh, these are great, these costume designs. Were really being pushed on the, like, basically the public, even because studios needed content to put out on video, and they had all these catalog titles, and they were just, you know, a lot of times they were affording them a lot of special treatment. And it actually includes the play by Peter Shaffer. So you can, I was reading through some of that, and it's interesting how it lines up to the film, or it's different. But and then the track list and liner notes for the CD that came with this, but still nice to have. Alright, so that is my Laserdisc collection. I don't know if I'll do any other update videos in the future because I don't get that many that often. But just thought this was a nice little detour for a while, and yeah, thank you for watching.